What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Dynasty season. We got a Dynasty discussion this evening for players we're excited for and also players we're nervous about heading into our Dynasty drafts right here on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, Sky Guasco. It has been a while coming through the summer here, diving in, going into a long spring. Very, very excited to be back on the airwaves here. We got our team rallying back up. We got some new additions. We have transitioned a few folks out as well, and so we're excited to have my man, Jefferson, on deck with us this evening. We have a very fun episode for you and some Dynasty discussion to talk about players we're excited for, and also players we are nervous about. Before we get too far, I want to, of course, make sure everybody is following us on all the channels. That's X. You can follow us on Razzball NFL. Subscribe, of course, to this YouTube channel right here. Hit the bell, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe, of course. And then you can also hear the repurposed episodes on the podcast when you're on the go. I have always mentioned that I do that when I'm walking the pup, mowing the lawn, long drives, working at work. I don't have time to watch YouTube videos. That's okay. But I can listen to my podcast as I multitask. So you can check that out at the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere you listen to your audio as well. Jeff, great to have you back, man. How has your spring been? And what are we looking for? Give me one player maybe off script here that we're not even talking about tonight, but maybe one buzz, some player in general in the Dynasty realm, as you are our Dynasty guy with the Dynasty rankings chart. Let us know what kind of the updates are on the Dynasty front for Razzball, and maybe just one player off topic that you've been hearing about this spring that you're looking forward to kind of following through the training camps.
Yeah, that's good to be back. Dynasty's in full session. I love that OTAs are going, the rookies are in camp, so we're starting to see players, what they're looking like. One player I think that is standing out to me that I was kind of down on, but I think it's Rhamondre. His route running, they're talking about him being really good. I was kind of down early on with him being the WR3, but Keenan Allen is on a one-year deal, and if his route running is as good as they are saying in camp it is, I think Caleb Williams and him are going to have a good little connection there in Chicago.
I love that, man. Shouts out to the Huskies. I usually don't do that as I'm a Duck, but he is a hell of a player. And unfortunately, they were the only team to beat the Ducks, not once, but twice, but 3 times. Also, I want to give a shout out here really quickly. You're a baseball guy. I'm a baseball guy. Bob is not on the program tonight. So we tricked him, and we're going to talk 45 minutes of baseball. I'm kidding. We're not. We're talking fantasy football in the Dynasty realm as we go. However, so many of you watching right now, I can guarantee you, come over from the Razzball baseball family, which is alive and well and going strong. So, of course, you can check out all of that, all the episodes and all of our articles for football, baseball, and otherwise on football.razzball.com with the website. Jeff, today is a very special day. As a Northwest kid, a West Coast kid, a 90s kid, 25 years ago today, the kid, a.k.a. Ken Griffey Jr., hit the last home run in Mariner history before Safeco Field at the Kingdome in Seattle. Big day for us Seattle Mariners fans. Of course, I'm a Giants guy as well, but Ken Griffey Jr. is my favorite player that I got to see growing up. So pretty big day 25 years ago. Just wanted to give him a shout out. All right, without any further ado, and before I get fired, before we get started this summer, let's get into it. I'm going to let you kick it off, my man. Let's start off with the players that we're excited for. And again, those of you watching right now, make sure to subscribe to all the channels and follow us here, but jump in the comments as well. We got a live feed going. We got a bunch of you on channel already. We got 700 viewing currently right now. We would love to hear from you in the Dynasty realm, a rookie, an OG, someone with a new opportunity. Who are you excited for this summer at any position looking into Dynasty draft season? Jeff, I'll kick it off to you, man. Who is the first player that you have that you're excited for this draft season in the Dynasty world?
The first player, so looking at rookies this offseason, I've been looking at the rookies heading into Dynasty drafts and rookie drafts only in Dynasty leagues, and I'm going to utilize a lot of rookie players in this Dynasty format. The first player that stands out to me, this may surprise some and many, but I think it's Marshawn Lloyd. I just wrote an article about futures forecasting. Well, I'm kind of like forecasting the future of teams and kind of their dynamics, how they're looking on a GM and a contractual basis. I know Josh Jacobs is in Green Bay now, signed a 4-year deal, but after his first year, he's on a team option every year. So if he doesn't do well this year, he's gone, and then it's just Marshawn Lloyd and maybe Dylan. But I don't think is the guy there. So he's more of a backup. So I think Marshawn Lloyd is headed into a situation where it may not be year one, but in year two, I think he's going to be incredible. Just joining that offense in Green Bay is going to be great enough with Jordan Love. What I do like about him the most is that he's an underrated pass catcher. USC, he wasn't utilized a lot, but he was a playmaker. A little fun stat for you here real fast is that he averaged 17.8 yards a catch out of the backfield. Now, it was only on 13 catches, so that's a caveat, small sample size. But when he did catch the ball in the backfield, he was making big plays. So I can see him continuing that and following the footsteps of Aaron Jones there. You got to also think about Matt LaFleur on that offense with Aaron Jones. He's been, I think, a top 10 running back the 4 or 5 seasons in that system. So if Marshawn Lloyd does get that opportunity to get those touches out of the backfield, if Josh Jacobs leaves in one season, I think he makes sure a great value pick in the 3rd round in many drafts.
I like that. And you all know I'm actually higher on Josh Jacobs than I have been in 5 years this year with him going to Green Bay. But to benefit our boy Matty Styles, our house Packers fan, there's an opportunity he could get work right away as well, right? One thing Josh Jacobs has been great at is scoring touchdowns, but if he loses efficiency between the 20s, which is why I haven't liked him over the years, Marshawn Lloyd maybe gets more of that work. I totally agree with you. I like that offense a lot in Green Bay. Obviously, we'll see if they can take another step. All right, I'll go into mine here. We already have some comments. We're going to get to a handful of you guys. Thanks for jumping in already. Let's get a couple names on the board, and then we'll jump into a few of your comments. Mine is a player that kind of disappeared, man. I was going back through research and starting to look at Dynasty stuff, and I was like, wait a minute. I totally forgot about Anthony Richardson for the Colts, which is unfortunate. A lot of hype last year. He gets drafted, comes out, gangbusters in 2 full games, played pieces of 4, but he got hurt twice. And then it ended the season, unfortunately. Should be totally healthy, and so far looks good moving forward. Year 2 in an offense, right? Even if it's mental, right? That matters a lot. We got a lot of young bucks in Indianapolis. Of course, Jonathan Taylor coming back, Michael Pittman hopefully taking another step, and some new opportunities there as well. In his 2 full starts last year, he averaged 25.5 fantasy points per game, which was higher than Josh Allen's average over the entire season, which was about 24 points per game. So again, I understand it's ridiculous to compare them. I'm not. And it was only 2 games. However, the skill set, the rushing ability, his ability to score touchdowns on the ground and through the air, and which should be I don't know about potent, but good offense with the Colts, is a great opportunity. He led all quarterbacks in fantasy points per drop back last year. Again, only 2 games, but those averages spike. And I don't think that they were flukes either, right? He has the skill set and the ability we were talking about preseason last year. We just only got to see it for a couple of games, unfortunately. So the player I'm most excited about, at least at the quarterback position right now, heading into the season in Dynasty, is Anthony Richardson. You're focused a little bit more on the rookies and the kids coming in with maybe a couple of exceptions. Totally understand that. Right now, there's a lot of startup dynasties. You're accounting for a lot of those rookies coming in. I wanted to take a little bit of a different angle, get some younger players, maybe some OGs as well, because let's face it, all these guys need to get drafted one way or another. They can't all be rookies. So I want to make sure we account for them. Anthony Richardson, kind of still a rookie season, right? Because he only played 2 games last year. We'll see what happens. But Anthony Richardson is the player I'm most excited about at the quarterback position. Who do you have next up?
Another player I'm excited for, again, sticking with more rookies. This may surprise many, but it's actually Spencer Rattler. I know you have all the top guys. You know, they're going to go in the first 3 or 4 picks of those dynasty rookie drafts. But someone that you might see in the 4th round is Spencer Rattler. Just in camp already, they were talking about him already competing for the job. And that to me stood out as very interesting. So just kind of some research a little bit about him. I'm starting the Big 12 at OU. A Big 12 guy. He was number 1 quarterback in the country in 19 out of high school. 5-star recruit, so he's got the pedigree there. Now in New Orleans, he'll be with first-time OC Clint Kubiak, who last season was the passing game coordinator with San Fran, which they did a lot of pre-snap motions, which they're starting to already utilize in camp, which was actually one of Rattler's benefits at South Carolina, actually, when he transferred there. He was 109 for 152 on pre-snap motion dropbacks for 1,100 yards and 8 TDs, 0 interceptions. And with that kind of an offense, Purdy last season with QB6, not trying to compare the Niners offense to the Saints, but I don't think Carr is going to continue on there. Kind of like Josh Jacobs doing research, he can also be cut next season. And though it'll be dead money, nothing is guaranteed after this season. So the Saints could move away after this season, meaning you could be at a QB1 in the 4th round in a dynasty draft for rookies. So I really like that. And then also just Rattler is more of outside the pocket kind of a quarterback than Carr is as well, which is what the OC is going to start running. And you add the fact that they still got Chris Olave there, Rashad Shaheed. Sorry if I mispronounce his name, but I like that receiving duo there. You still have Kamara there. Jamal Williams is there. Keandre Miller is there. So I think it's a little bit of an underrated offense. And so he's the guy that you should really target if you are looking for running backs and receivers early on in your drafts, or even a tight end. You may be able to get a QB, 2 in super flex dynasty formats in the 4th round.
Nice. I like that call a lot. Spencer Rattler, look, last year there was a lot of hype he was going to come out, and he didn't, right? Kind of faded a little bit, but there was a lot of talk 2 seasons ago, 2 draft classes ago, he was going to come out then and would have been maybe a top 10 pick. There was about a week there where he was like the number 1 pick during the season. It kind of faded out, right? And he ended up transferring, doing his thing. But I think he's kind of been under the radar now. I think he was overhyped 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now I think he's underrated, actually. And I agree with you. We'll see what, Derek Carr's fine. But if he goes down, now they have a reliable source there in New Orleans. And they do have some weapons. Michael Thomas is a free agent technically, but they could probably bring him back as a clubhouse guy for free, maybe healthy finally. And of course, all those other weapons. And I've already talked extensively about how much I still love Alvin Kamara, which I think could be another option there as well. Good call. All right, we got a bunch of people jumping in the comments here. We're going to read off a couple of those first. But if you're just joining us, again, this is Sky Guasco, the host of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast tonight with my man Jefferson, hanging out. This is the Razzball Fantasy Football YouTube show. We also repurpose to the podcast. So make sure you follow everything and subscribe and follow all of our articles for free on football.razzball.com. We got Dynasty. We got Redraft. We're here all summer long, bringing you up to draft day. And oh, by the way, we're here all season long, and we have a very, very, very fun Sunday morning kickoff show that we get going to you for 2 hours pregame to help you set your lineups. Make sure you follow us to be aware of that. All right, let me jump into my next player that I'm excited about in Dynasty. Jeff, you and I have already talked about this guy ad nauseum, but I couldn't leave him out of this particular episode. But I think I'm going to stop talking about him after this show because I don't want his ADP to skyrocket any more than it already is going to. It's our mutual boy, Zamir White of the Las Vegas, formerly Oakland Raiders. I've talked extensively about Josh Jacobs and his inefficiencies again. I had a whole episode about that previously this spring. I'm not going to focus on that. But what I am going to focus on is when Zamir White got an opportunity in that same exact offense, when Josh Jacobs got hurt down the stretch, and oh, by the way, didn't play in your fantasy football playoffs. Thank you, Josh. Zamir White did. Okay, he filled in 15 PPR points per game over the weeks, 15, 16, 17, and 18. That's all of your championships, no matter what your settings are. And he was RB9 down the stretch. Josh Jacobs before that in PPR was about 14 points per game. Zamir White in the same offense with similar opportunity, had a 1.5 better in PPR. He can catch the ball. He can run between the tackles. He's a big dog. I loved him at Georgia. I thought he was a sleeper last year. I called that out. Sure enough, he didn't get a ton of opportunity, but here he is now getting the bulk of the work. They did not bring in a lot of people in that backfield. And I do think that the Raider culture of the old days is going to start coming back here, I believe, with Antonio Pierce and what these guys want to do. Zach, Max Crosby and Devontae Adams. I think they're bringing a little more grit back to the Raiders, which I'd like to see. I don't think they have a shot in hell in their division, but I do think they're going to be a tough grab. And I do think that Zamir White is going to have a lot of great opportunities. So Go get him now if you can, preseason, pre-draft. If not, I think he's going to be a value on draft day because he doesn't yet have the hype. So don't forget about our boy, Zamir White. All right, Jeff, we got one more player. Oh, you want to say a couple thoughts about your boy? Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Zamir White. I think he averaged 20 carries over that stretch as well, and no other running back did that. So Antonio Pierce is going to run the ball. That's their identity. I know Minshew is there, but they're going to run the ball. So I just had to add that for Zamir White. I just think he's going to be. I don't want to, like you said, overhype him right now, but go get him.
And no shots to Garner Minshew, of course, league favorite, Aiden O'Connell, whatever. But they're mid, as the kids say. So if they're falling behind, that could hurt Zamir White. But I think he could catch the ball. For the Raiders to compete with the Chiefs, with the Chargers, with the Broncos, they're going to have to establish a run early and often and play defense. I think the defense is going to be okay. And if they can do that, for them to run their pace, they're going to run behind Zamir White. I like that a lot as a high-end RB2 with a RB1 upside, hopefully. We have one more player each. Why don't you go ahead and give us the final player you have today for the player you're most excited about in Dynasty?
I saved the best for last as a Jags man. Myself and Duval. Even though he's Texas, a little Duval action. That's my squad. And Brian Thomas. I was so ecstatic when they drafted him to begin with. And then I know they signed Gabe Davis before that, and then they brought him in. I just could see already the receiving core is already being developed there. He's going to slide right into Calvin Ridley's role. Ridley was a WR18 last season in his first year in Jacksonville. I'm not saying he's going to be WR18, but he's going to take that role, and he's going to get a lot of targets. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, 8 targets a game as a rookie, just with the way he plays and the way he played well at LSU, especially when he had Jaden Daniels there. So Gabe Davis is going to take the Zay Jones role. Not a bad role for Gabe Davis, but I don't think he's going to take Ridley's role. I also love the long-term factor that Trevor is there for another 5 years.
Got that
extension. On his rookie deal, got that extension. So he got paid a lot. Well, hopefully I'm excited, but so when you look at Thomas, he's going in an offense with Doug Peterson's offense. Their quarterback is set. He just has to play now. And I think he's a guy that's going late first round, early second round, depending on your league and rookie dynasty leagues. And if you miss out on the top receivers, I think you're still going to get a WR1 and maybe by year 2 or year 3 with Thomas. Christian Kirk's a great slot guy. Evan Ingram's a great tight end, but I think Thomas is just going to ascend as long as Trevor ascends together, and just really excited for him.
I like it. I had Brian Thomas also in this category here. We wanted to make sure we mix it up a little bit, but I would just simply agree with you. I'm absolutely excited about this. Again, Calvin Ridley leaves. They do have some opportunity. Gabe Davis can be fun, but we were all waiting for the big boom games. You bench Gabe Davis, he goes off for 202. You play him, he has a gooser. We can't have that. I do like Evan Ingram in that offense, which I think actually helps a player like Brian Thomas, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Because he can open up that field a little bit. Travis Etienne can keep the defense honest, so you can start burning. I do think that now, we have, Trevor's got to pick it up too. Right. Like when he got signed or extended, a lot of people were like, cool. We all have been like giving this kid the hype because we know what he could be, but he hasn't yet been. And I think this year they really put it together in Jacksonville. And look, Houston has upgraded quickly, but I don't see necessarily, the Titans being a factor long-term, and maybe even the Colts if they slip with Richardson, if he doesn't come back healthy. So this division might be up for Jacksonville as well. So we'll see what happens, but I totally agree with you. And again, look, we see LSU wide receivers come into the NFL immediately ready to go. I think that he will be one of those players also. Okay, final player for me is going to be Xavier Worthy. Now, this one's interesting because right now I'm super excited about him because Rashee Rice is suspended. And Marquise Brown's fun, but he's old. And I just think there's a lot on the bone here in this offense, obviously. I also think that something that maybe is going kind of under the radar a little bit that I just want to make sure comes to the surface for folks thinking about this opportunity is that they traded away their all-pro cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed. In fantasy football circles, we don't talk about defense and we don't talk about defensive players, but it matters when a guy's that good, right? Kind of shutting down opposing quarterback or wide receivers and keeping points off the board, he's no longer there. So if teams are scoring more often on the Chiefs, they are going to have a little bit more of a run and gun versus a dink and dunk with Travis Kelce last year and running the ball. I still think they're going to do that because Travis Kelce is going to get his over the middle. But Xavier Worthy, for me, speedster, obviously out of Texas. Something, too, in the Dynasty circle, we talk about things like, breakout age, and we talk about things about dominator rating and things like that, right? Those are basically nerd stats for how good this kid was when he was that good. As a freshman in college, he had 62 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, 981 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And then his last year, he had 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. In his junior year, 30% career dominator rating, which is the second highest in his class, right? And he was doing this at 18, 19 years old, which again, out of high school is amazing when you're playing top tier college football. So I love this kid as an individual athlete. Pairing anybody with, Mahomes obviously boosts their capital. And I think this offense with Andy Reid is just going to boom him. Now let's make another OG comparison to Deshaun Jackson, who we all loved in fantasy for 10 plus years when he was healthy, also coached for a number of years in Philadelphia by Andy Reid. Again, Rashid Rice is suspended for a handful of games. Marquise Brown's on the other side, which again, I think keeps defenses honest, and they do not have as strong as a defense this year. So when everybody focuses and collapses down on that run and play action and Travis Kelce, you put him over the top. Nobody's Tyreek Hill yet, but if anybody could be, it might be Xavier Worthy. And this is somebody that I'm probably going to reach for in startup dynasty drafts.
This is where we may differ a little bit. I think he's going to be a good player, but I'm a bit nervous going back to our header here for this one. I got a handful of reasons why I'm a little bit nervous about him. Rookie receivers outside of Rashid Rice haven't really lived up to the expectations going into Kansas City with Mahomes. Going back to Mecole Hardman, who is back on a one-year deal, he never eclipsed 1,000 yards there. I know he played with Tyreek Hill, but he just never – I think everyone thought he was going to be that guy. Last year, Sky Moore, I was excited about. I think he had a total of 38 targets last season in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I went back to look at prior to Tyreek Hill, his 2 seasons, and from 20 to 21, and then the last 2, their passing attempts have gone down as a team. I know Mahomes has said recently they want to get back to throwing it over the top a lot more, but I worry that they may not be slinging it as much and kind of utilizing Pacheco a little bit more. And then looking at target shares, we haven't accounted for Justin Watson. He had a pretty good year last year. He's still there. I know Rice is going to miss time, but Kelsey's the head guy. I think Marquise Brown is going to get a lot of targets. He's also on a one-year deal. He's on a make it or prove it league. So if Brown plays well, they could bring him back. So I'm just not seeing the targets for Worthy right away. In year 1, year 2, year 3, maybe he gets a little bit more. I'm just kind of curious to see. Maybe I'm way off and he's Tyreek Hill right out the gate. But I don't see the target percentages for him to make him truly relevant very long term. Just by looking at kind of a lot of the things. Because the third best receiver target-wise was getting last season was Justin Watson at 53. And then MVS was at 42 targets. So over the course of a season, I don't know where he falls into that hierarchy of receiver targets.
Fair. I appreciate the contradiction, right? We'll kind of jump in on the other side here. Players were nervous about, which is fair. And I'm going to get to some comments here in a second. Our boy Jamie just jumped in. Great to hear from you, bud. And I'm going to get to Uncle Ted, who's been blowing us up as well with some great suggestions. So we'll get to you in just a second. Thanks for tuning in here. Just to reply one more time before we move on here. I would agree with you, and I might agree with you if we're talking redraft right now, because it's year 1. It's a rookie receiver with Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers had this thing too, right? Tom Brady had this thing, right? Like, Mahomes isn't an OG yet, but he's certainly well established. And we start finding trends with quarterbacks specifically of how they like to kind of integrate guys and put them in there. Mahomes has not peppered anybody other than Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, right? I think, though, he wants to, and so does Andy Reid. And they try to. But when MVS is wide open for 30 yards in playoff games and opening night and these things, and he's dropping touchdowns. It's real simple, dude. From third grade to the NFL, sorry, bro, I'm not throwing you the ball anymore. Sky Moore, I think, was just more of a utility guy, and we fantasy put him as like the number one guy for Mahomes, and Andy Reid was like, let's make him like Robert Woods, you know? And I just don't think he could hold up. Plus, he got hurt. Justin Watson, I think, is fine, but obviously he's not getting enough work either for some reason. So, look, Xavier Worthy hasn't done anything on an NFL field yet. He's a rookie. That's why we're having this debate. But the pedigree, what he did in college, and coming out right away with the spot that he can fill, I think is going to be great in Dynasty, specifically longer term. That's why I'm more excited about him in Dynasty. Maybe not so much in redraft this year, but for this particular conversation, I am actually a bit more excited about him. So Xavier Worthy is the guy that we differ on, which of course I respect. Let's take a quick just intermission, if you will, from our players we're excited about into the players that we're nervous about. We're going to get back to a larger list. Again, if you're just joining us this evening, we got 1,500 plus of you watching right now. I appreciate it. We need more comments in the section. Players that you're excited about in Dynasty, whether it be a rookie coming in, a veteran who's more established or getting an opportunity, or maybe it's an OG that you still think, like Bob loves James Conner still, right? Why? So tell us about that. Also, get ahead of it and let us know the players you might be nervous about as well before we jump into those. Also, you can see on the bottom of the screen here and all our podcasters as well. You can follow us on X. That's Razzball, Razzball NFL. And of course, you can subscribe right here to the Razzball Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Hit that bell, subscribe, leave a comment. And then you can also download the podcast for the verbals as well when you're on the go. All of our articles for free on football.razzball.com. All right, let's jump in here to Uncle Ted. First of all, not you folks can't see this on the screen ahead of time, but it's a picture of Ted Williams. And folks, I'm a Giants fan. I'm wearing a 1954 New York Giants hat. Willie Mays truther. If you're not a football guy, not a baseball guy, he passed away last week, which is pretty rough for baseball fans everywhere. But to come in hot with an Uncle Ted and a Ted Williams right off the bat is just phenomenal. So shouts out to this. But I don't have, I'm not going to put them all on the screen. But Jeff, I'm going to rattle a ton of names at you. Pick one of these guys you're excited about. I got Kamani Vidal going to the Chargers. A lot of depth there, but could be an opportunity. We got Jahar Jordan, Frank Gore Jr. Shouts out to the Niners. Adai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey. We love him as well. Brendan Rice, of course, the son of Jerry Rice. He agreed on Anthony Richardson as well. We got Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn there, who are kind of sneaky in Dallas because now we don't have, Tony. Zeke come back to Dallas, but I guess we're not worried about that. And Tony Pollard is out. Zach Moss, Chase Brown, and also Cade Stover, who was maybe handpicked there with Tank Dell and CJ Stroud last year. And then Jamie pops in as well, excited for Roman Wilson, which is interesting. Drafted him in 18 dynasty leagues so far here. 72% of his leagues, he's all in there. So, Jeff, just one of those names maybe that you're looking forward to and you're excited about before we transition.
Yeah, just keeping on the rookie. I think Ladd is an obvious one for me. I'm curious the Chargers offense overall. Same with Kamani. He's interesting because the guys they brought in are injury prone. I hate to bring that up, but they just are. So he may get work right away. And if he proves to be a healthy back, he may keep that running back room with Greg Roman. And they are a run first offense under him as an OC. So I like Kamani Vidal a lot, especially for his price as well in Dynasty rookie drafts.
I like that, and it's more or less wide open. Jamie popping in here with McLaurin, finally with a good quarterback as well. So again, we're talking a lot about these younger players and rookies, but don't forget about the veterans. These guys get drafted too, and in Dynasty leagues, they fall below the wayside quite a bit, especially a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is very consistent and productive. He just hasn't quite lived up to the hype, but he also hasn't had consistency at quarterback. Maybe Jaden Daniels can help him out. Of course, we're big fans of him as well. So Uncle Ted and Jamie, thank you for jumping in. Anybody else, feel free to join our chat tonight if you'd like to as well. But let's pop back into it. You've already kind of messaged one of your guys here. Xavier Worthy, you're nervous about. I actually happen to be excited about him. But let me turn the page a little bit here on a running back that unfortunately I'm nervous about in Dynasty. So we're talking 2-3 years out minimum, see what happens. Now, contradictory to me, the Patriots are not nervous about Rhamondre Stevenson, giving him a 4-year extension, which, let's be honest, man, if you're not a rookie, you just don't see this happen in the NFL anymore. You're not Christian McCaffrey. You're not one of these like trendsetter, difference-making running backs. You don't see a 4-year extension for anybody, let alone at $9 million a year, which is good money at running back, 36 total. Now, Rhamondre over the mid half of the season came out slow. Patriots offense was dreadful all year, but certainly at the beginning. Then he got hurt to end the season. But week 6 through 12, he had a bye week in week 11, so 5 weeks. Stevenson was an RB7 in PPR points per game, RB10 overall in those weeks. Obviously very solid. However, he was on pace to better his rushing numbers across the board, but his averages for receiving, which we all loved about him coming out of Oklahoma, actually dipped from 2022 when he really broke up down the stretch. Antonio Gibson now goes from Washington over to New England. I think that's kind of been pushed under the rug. We don't really care about Antonio Gibson. No offense. However, he's a factor for Rhamondre Stevenson, especially in pass catching in PPR and half PPR leagues. Maybe steals a couple of touchdowns and might just take him off the field on third downs. Plus, I don't love the offense in general. Like, how often are the Patriots with a rookie quarterback and new coordinators and the whole thing, like a fresh start after the Brady era, obviously? How often are they going to be putting up 4 touchdowns a game? Probably not very. So if they're getting 2 touchdowns a game, one of those maybe goes to Rhamondre, but how often does he have in multiple games or, 20 plus PPR points, which I think we're drafting him to do right now? I'm nervous about that. So with his efficiency not great in points per reception, which we were kind of excited about last year, you have Antonio Gibson coming in for at least pass catching downs, I would imagine. And then who knows what happens with a rookie quarterback, a bunch of kind of oddball wide receivers, and then what's the offense actually going to look like for the Patriots. In redraft, I wouldn't mind him as an RB2. He'd be a steal as an RB3. Dynasty, though, man, I just feel like I get ahead of him getting extended by the actual team and be like, the Patriots love him. You should too. And I would offload Rhamondre Stevenson right now if I could potentially.
Oh, I agree 100% with you on that one. The OC is good there. Came from the Browns, Alex Van Pelt. A little run-centric offense as well, even though he let Joe Flacco sling it around to my demise in the playoffs. But anyhow, so he'd be a good trade high. I mean, to sell high right now on him. I agree with you being nervous on him.
Got it. Who is your second player here that you're nervous about in Dynasty?
This is a shout out to Jamie in the comments. It's Roman Wilson, my friend.
Big up, Jamie.
I know we're excited about him, but let me tell you some reasons why I'm a little bit nervous. First and foremost, just his offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. He is the bane of my existence in fantasy.
Shout out Kyle Pitts.
Exactly. All he wants to do is run the ball, and that's what they're going to do. Looking over the past 3 seasons in passing attempts, they were 25th, 31st, and 19th in pass attempts as an offense. They currently have 2 quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. Yep. So who's going to be the starter?
I think their backup's the best one. But that's
exactly. And is it going to be the same system, or is it going to be RPO based with Justin Fields? Is it so? I just don't know what system we got going on there. And then based on Arthur Smith's offense and kind of what he has done, they target primarily the receiver 1, which in this case would be George Pickens now, and the tight end and Pratt Freiermuth. And then a little bit of the running back, Jalen Warren, who we're all excited about here at Razzball as a group. So that doesn't leave much room for a receiver 2, much less a rookie, to get any targets, even in Dynasty, even long term. So like 2 or 3 seasons, I don't know where Roman Wilson is even on the hierarchy of getting targets in this offense. And I kind of prefer a receiver 3 rookie on a pass happy offense like Jermaine Burton in Cincinnati. He's probably taken that Tyler Boyd role right away. Who knows what happened with T. Higgins? But I'd rather a receiver that has like a Joe Burrow than a guy that's going to be going with Russell Wilson for a year and then Justin Fields. Like, there's no consistency with that offense. So I'm a bit nervous on Wilson, and for his price tag, I'm out.
Man, fair. And Robert had just come in here as well. I popped it up on the screen, but for the podcasters out there, Najee Harris is going to run the hell out of the ball as well, right? I mean, look, like it or not, there was a lot of Bijan Robinson and a lot of Tyler Algier last year. They just weren't as efficient as we wanted them to be, but they got the opportunities, right? So Pittsburgh, again, you're talking depth. And, Deontay Johnson's gone. That's an opportunity. But I think a guy a lot of us are excited about, and rightfully so, is George Pickens. But what does that actually look like, and where is there room? So when we're talking dynasty right now, there's not enough to view. There's not enough to see here to be excited. Therefore, you're nervous. I respect that as well. Jamie, Uncle Ted, and Robert, thanks so much for jumping in the chat. There's a couple more names here we'll get to at the very end, but I want to roll out the rest of ours. But the rest of you, feel free to jump in to our comments live here, and we'll get them on the board when possible. Jamie coming in with stats always live. Deontay was targeted 7 targets last season. Russell Wilson would be better and more explosive than him if he got the same opportunities. Again, PPR possession receiver for Deontay. Maybe Wilson would be a little more effective. We'll see what happens. A player I'm nervous about is Christian Watson. Now, I love the Packers offense, and I love Jordan Love. I think we all do. We saw what happened last year. Thank goodness, the Niners were able to get past them. But before that, they dismantled, not just beat, folks. They embarrassed Dallas in the postseason, right? As a young upstart, new team coming in, first starting quarterback, and they came in and shocked the league, frankly, putting up 40 on that massive defense and, stunting their offense as well. The Packers are going to be solid. There's just too many other players there right now. I'm not going to get into this whole Christian Watson has 2 different size legs in this whole offseason thing. I get it. The kid was injured and it didn't grow back well enough, and hopefully he'll be evened out, and that's a thing, whatever. But that's part of it. Last year, he was actually dominant in the middle of the season, but then we saw a bunch of other cats show up at the end, which is why I'm nervous. Weeks 5 through 13, he led the team in target share, air yard share, yards per route run, end zone targets, and first read share. First read share is a deep stat, but that's great. That's like, think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams forever. Aaron Rodgers calls a pass play. No matter what it's called, he looks at Devontae first. If he's covered, then he'll scan the field, right? Jordan Love was doing that with Christian Watson. Let's see. First read, 22% of the time. We love that. But Romeo Doubs was hurt during that time. Dontavian Wicks hadn't really shown up yet. Jaden Reed was kind of a Debo light, and he was like halfway a running back at that point, right? Aaron Jones was in and off of the field. Like, they didn't have consistency. All their tight ends were getting hurt at the time. Like, I don't want to say they had to force the ball to Watson, but he wasn't what he was with Aaron Rodgers either when he was healthy. So I'm nervous about the injury coming back. I'm worried about his hamstring in general, which has plagued him so far being in the NFL, which, look, man, those things don't just go away, unfortunately. Mike Evans has been able to handle it, but it basically ruined or shortened careers for guys like Brandon Marshall at the end there, or Alshon Jeffrey, who was amazing, but then he had that hamstring. Julio Jones even was slowed up by that thing during the season. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. And then to your boy, we also have Marshawn Lloyd showing up now, taking over for Aaron Jones. So there's a lot of opportunity there for other players. I love Jordan Love. I love this offense in general. I like the Packers team. In Dynasty, long-term, I don't see Christian Watson necessarily holding his weight to be the number one and stay the number one. Therefore, I'd like to pick other players because he is easily the number one guy people are going after. I'd rather just cherry pick 1 or 2 of the other guys at a different value in Green Bay.
Completely agree with that.
Okay. Who is your final player here that you were nervous about in Dynasty?
Lastly, I'm going to go with the quarterback, Michael Penix, out of Atlanta. This is another interesting situation. Way was drafted after they signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. Kirk Cousins has 2 years guaranteed, so at a minimum, he won't see the field, provided Cousins is healthy for 2 more years. He's an older rookie quarterback, so if then things pan out, he's already 24, so he'll be 26 starting already. I don't really like that in Dynasty. And unfortunately, from what I'm seeing on like my rankings and other consensus rankings, you got to draft him in the second round of rookie drafts in Dynasty, and that's a very high draft cost for a guy that may not see the field for 2 or 3 seasons, at a minimum 4 if Cousins stays healthy. And then you look at his injury concerns with his knees. If he does get the chance, all those injuries are going to come up. That's concerning. And then I'm already reading about his inconsistencies in rookie camp. already, but passing the intermediate middle, passing. So he's a good talent. I just don't like his situation as well. The other concern I have is, will this coaching staff in Atlanta be around when he gets a chance to actually play?
Fair.
Arthur Smith only got 3 seasons there, and he's out. And they rehauled everything, a whole new quarterback, all new system now. Well, if he lasts 3 seasons, Kirk Cousins is out. Is that new staff wanting a new quarterback? Are they going to go with him? So it's just, for that second-round draft cost in rookie dynasty formats, I'm very nervous. Very nervous.
You mentioned Spencer Rattler earlier as a player you're excited about. Obviously not going to start anytime soon, barring injury with Derek Carr there in New Orleans. You're on the clock. You don't have to draft Spencer Rattler in the second round, obviously, but you're saying you would pass on Penix and say you need you're in a single quarterback, or obviously super flex leagues are different and blah, 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 right? Like it just becomes more valuable. However, you need a quarterback one way or another. You'd rather pass on Penix, wait a round or 3, and go get Rattler instead.
Yeah, you can get Ladd in the second and then get Rattler, and I think you're set for long term.
Or just jump the gun and go get my boy Bo Nix, and you'll be just fine for hopefully the next 10 years.
I almost put him on the list. I almost did.
Oh, God, I'm so excited. All right. Love that. We got our final name here, and then I'm going to get to a couple more of your comments here before we get out tonight. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us again. Razzball Fantasy Football YouTube show, hot and ready after a long spring, kind of trickling stuff out, but we got the squad back together, and we are busting out multiple episodes per week, family. So we're back. Make sure you hit all the links, and we'll be back with you multiple times per week. All right, my final guy is maybe obvious to some and maybe shocking to others. Stefon Diggs. On one hand, you're like, yeah, duh. New team, doesn't know the system, lots of competition. Not just competition, but Tank Dell and Nico Collins went nuclear in their own respective rights last year. And he was kind of pushed out, or a mutual split in Buffalo, to put it nicely. But the reality is, like, he's 31, which is not the end of wide receivers, and he looks fine health-wise. But we start to see kind of the over the hump. Okay. So we're talking dynasty right now, maybe 3 years, 4 years, hopefully left, with like high production, but he does have the competition. Week 10 on last year, week 10 on. So like 7-8 games, 7 points per game in half PPR average, 42 receiving yards. By the way, he had 1,800 air yards during that time. Air yards is basically from the quarterback to where the wide receiver was going, whether he catches it or not. All those yards are accumulated, whether he catches the ball in his reception or not. Those are air yards. 1,800 air yards over those 8 games. He had 42 averaged with Josh Allen, who we know is one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL. They couldn't connect. On top of that, he was getting a 30% target share in Buffalo. That's insane, folks. Nobody gets that in the NFL. He's definitely not going to get that in Houston with Tank Dell and Nico Collins. I'd be shocked if he's getting 20% target share. And he was getting 30 last year with all those air yards, and he wasn't making it happen, and he wasn't scoring. So he was a bust all the way down the second half of the season. I don't love that. Now, is he still a talented player? Obviously. They brought him in. He's going to be a 3-headed monster. I love CJ Stroud like everyone else. But if I'm on redraft or dynasty, I'm going to go after Nico Collins and Tank Dell 100 times out of 100 before I even look at Stefon Diggs. And then I might pass on him anyway to look at somebody else. So might seem obvious to some people, might be shocking to others, because he has been so great. When he was in Minnesota, he kind of pushed Adam Thielen out a little bit, and then he got his own opportunity in Buffalo, crushed for a couple of years. But now he's getting a third wind, and I just feel like he's going to be a number 3 or maybe a 2.5 in what should be an incredible offense. So don't love it for Stefon Diggs. And for me, he's just a player that I'm nervous about. And I just can't see in dynasty that I'm going to be actually looking for him. So unfortunately, it's just not a player that I'm going to be looking for. Jamie is also completely out at a 3rd-round price in dynasty. This isn't Stefon Diggs from 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I got to pass on him.
100%. I'm curious the target share in Houston right now. You still got to think about the tight end there, like Dalton Schultz. He's going to get targets as well. So they all can't catch the ball. Only one ball.
Yep. And again, Stroud is through the moon, right? But these other two guys, Tank Dell and Nico Collins, when they're healthy, I think they're going to be the top-notch guy. And they already have the rapport, obviously, and they know the offense and everything else. Also, just a side note, I don't talk a lot about the like off the field type stuff and the diva stuff with wide receivers, but I do think something like DeMeco Ryans, who is a former Alabama linebacker, then a Texans linebacker, and just an old school ground and pound Antonio Pierce, Dan Campbell, punch you in the mouth type dude, which I love in the NFL these days. He's not going to put up with any whining. He wants to probably run the ball more than that whole team does anyway. And then when you're throwing the ball, whoever's open is going to get it. And Stefon Diggs made a career in Buffalo out of whining, getting hyper targeted and being great, or missing opportunities and frustrating everybody and leaving the Bills out to dry. So that's just not going to fly in Houston. And unless he can button it up, which I don't think he will, that might be a struggle for him also. So kind of thinking outside the box maybe and being hyperbolic potentially, but I'm nervous about that as well. All right, we do have a couple more comments here that I'll blast through really quick, and then we will get out for the rest of the evening. Again, appreciate everybody jumping in here in the comment section. Here's an odd name I haven't heard in like 4 seasons. Hunter Henry, a good value this year. Massive games first 2 weeks. Of course, I think he caught 3 or 4 touchdowns. Jamie would know off the bat. And then the last 2 weeks as well, putting up about 15 to 20 fantasy points. So again, not a player that anybody's looking at. You can go get him for free. You could probably maybe pick him off waiver wires in like shallower leagues, but don't forget about Hunter Henry. We're talking about him last couple seasons as a top 4 or 5 with OJ Howard, I believe, was in that group a couple years ago, and they all busted, unfortunately. Evan Ingram too, but he was up there with the pedigree. My guy is here. Jaden Daniels, I think, is a huge value this year. I really, really believe that he's Lamar Jackson and maybe a better passer. So I like Jaden Daniels. Keep an eye out for him and Washington once they get my boy Brandon Ayuk. And we got Rico Dowdle coming in here. I like that for the good flex. Deontay Johnson, we talked about already. Patty Freiermuth, Bob's a big fan there. Might be a nice kind of a second pass catcher in Pittsburgh this year. Again, we talked about how Deontay Johnson is gone. We talked about those other running backs there, Roman Wilson. We'll see what happens. How about this throwback? Does everyone remember Trey Lance? Who we the 49ers, me and the front office of the 49ers, moved up to go get Trey Lance at number 3. I was on a podcast with my good friend Ryan Leaf that night watching the draft live, and boom, there goes Trey Lance. We're all super excited. He gets hurt. The rest is history, but grab him for free. He's another quarterback that could get an opportunity. Still very, very young, and we'll see what happens there as well. And then again, Dynasty, I've never been on Stefon Diggs. Too expensive and inconsistent, Jamie, as well. I totally agree. Before we get out of here, Jeff, any other players, just maybe not analysis, just brainstorm a player or two that you're really excited about, you're nervous about, somebody you're keeping an eye on in Dynasty before we get out of here?
So I'm going to get away from the rookies for a little bit, but just in a Dynasty that's not a rookie, caught me off guard.
Put you on the spot, bro. It's football season. Let's go.
I would say, honestly, maybe it's even Aaron Jones in Minnesota.
Nice.
I think he's going to a great situation there. I know the quarterback play isn't great, so they may have to rely on him a little bit more. So I think you could get maybe a good still 3 seasons out of him. And, maybe you could buy low on him right now.
I like that. Bob and I just had kind of our running back breakout. We were talking about our top 5s, and we were talking about like players outside looking in who could be some surprises. And we both are, RB2 land for Aaron Jones, but also with the opportunity, if it happens and he's healthy, to pop off, because there's not Dalvin Cook and there's not Alexander Madison, and there is a rookie quarterback. So there could be more opportunity there for him by chance there as well. So I like the Aaron Jones pull. And Jamie has to throw out the obligatory Roschon Johnson. Love. It's fine. Keep repping it. I'm all about it. DeAndre Swift, probably the guy there. We'll see what happens, but I do like it in the next couple of seasons. So shout out to our boy, Roschon Johnson. All right, folks, we are going to get out of here. Thank you so much. We did a long one tonight. We have over 1,800 of you folks tuning into us live right now. Once again, I'm your host, Sky Guasco. I'm going to be driving you through the summer and into the season. We have Sunday morning pregame show, start, sit, show. It's so much fun. We get thousands of you guys jumping in with your questions every morning, start, sit, who it is, setting your lineups. We love doing that with you. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you're joining us this summer and go through into Sunday mornings when the season starts. But also, again, Jeff and I are going to be on Mondays and Thursdays moving forward. Derek and Matt have their own episode as well. Bob and Ben are going to be jumping on as well. We got all of us jumping back in this year. We got Dynasty content. We got redraft content. We got the Razzball, which is kicked off as well. Those submissions have been going off the chain. So if you haven't checked those out yet, you can find us on X to submit to apply for that. That's Razzball NFL on X, aka Twitter. You can also subscribe right here on the Razzball Fantasy Football YouTube show. Hit the bell so you don't miss our episodes when we pop up. And you can find us on the podcast side, repurposed for all of you that can't sit down and watch a TV show. We got the audio for you well. And of course, all of our episodes and all of our articles and all of our information for free on Razzball, football.razzball.com. For my man Jeff, I'm Sky. So much fun jumping back on with you guys. Appreciate Uncle Ted and Robert and Jamie and everybody else for jumping in the pod. We'll be back with you another time on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Y'all have a great night. Enjoy your baseball while you can, because we're coming in hot with football. We'll catch you next time, everybody. We are out of here.